answers does not mean that researchers should employ a single screening instrument. Likewise, we can expect that the survey instrument and sampling methodology used to identify sex trafficking in an urban environment will be unlikely to successfully identify victims of labor trafficking in a factory. And the methodology designed to measure adults who traffickers compel to work in agricultural fields will not be effective to measure boys compelled to engage in commercial sex. Traffickers recruit, groom, and coerce their victims in very different ways, and victims inhabit different, often tightly woven social networks. The wide variety of different sectors involved in human trafficking do not necessarily overlap, and therefore, any single methodology seeking to capture the vast variety of sex trafficking and forced labor operations would be deeply flawed. And that's why we believe the future of human trafficking prevalence measurement lies in focused estimates. Focused prevalence estimates are necessary. They must be industry specific and geographically restricted. Through subnational focused prevalence estimates, we could develop an estimate of adults traffickers compelled to work in restaurants in a specific metropolitan area, or an estimate of the nurses coerced to work in an elder care facility in a specific region. A focused estimate allows us to operate programs and conduct awareness campaigns to train service providers, expand services, and improve the criminal justice delivery system around a specific type of trafficking. And then we can measure again using the same methodology. Using a focused estimate, we could know if there was a reduction of prevalence, and if we introduce a treatment and control, we can tie these results or show a relationship to our methodology. Measurement of this sort might also show that our well-intentioned interventions did not have an impact on prevalence, and we should not fear this possibility. Such a finding would allow us to adapt strategies, adjust our thinking, and persevere to find success in the future. Let me pause for a moment and discuss how this forum originated. A few years ago, Congress created the Program to End Modern Slavery, aimed at achieving measurable and sustainable reduction of prevalence of human trafficking. With great gratitude, we want to acknowledge that the Prevalence Forum we're launching today was made possible by the United States government's generosity and commitment to this work. And it represents an innovative leadership step from the United States Department of State's Trafficking in Persons Office, specifically Julie Short-Eschelar, Abby Long, and Josh Ewell. They are consummate professionals, critical thinkers, and thoughtful diplomats, and I'm grateful to serve alongside them. It was in long conversations with them about the state of prevalence measurement in the world that we began to brainstorm the first iterations of an idea that has now evolved into this forum. For us, it's heartening to see what started as 4 or 5 of us scratching our heads in my office that has now resulted in this multi-million-dollar reality. With the partnership of the University of Georgia, this forum puts human and financial resources towards the goal of documenting the effectiveness of various methodological approaches in prevalence estimation and building a global community of research learners in this field. We're also grateful to the Department of Health and Human Services and the Department of Justice for their commitment to advance prevalence research. The State Department is making a $5 million investment in this research, and I'm hopeful that that number will increase as other federal partners join the forum. Let me highlight 6 distinctives about what we're launching today with this Prevalence Forum. The first distinctive is that all the studies funded by the forum are highly focused. All the studies are industry specific and geographically restricted so that measuring impact will be possible. So instead of asking how many trafficking victims exist in Morocco, we will ask how many domestic workers are forced to work in Casablanca. The second distinctive is coordination. With the leadership of the African Programming and Research Initiative to End Modern Slavery at the University of Georgia, the Prevalence Forum is funding research teams to implement a minimum of 2 different prevalence estimates on the same target population. The studies will be harmonized through expert guidance, the implementation of a meta-analysis, providing our movement with consistent and comparable research results. As far as we know, Research of this scope and style with this level of coordination has never been completed before in the international human trafficking field. The third distinctive is critically important, and that is a common definition. All the studies funded by this forum will align with the United Nations definition of trafficking in persons in the Palermo Protocol. And this protocol is one of the most widely accepted international legal instruments, and it's consistent with the United States Trafficking in Persons Act, the Trafficking Victims Protection Act. The forum is developing and testing a statistical definition of human trafficking based on the protocol and the TVPA. It includes all three critical elements of act, means, and purpose, and it does not require any requirement for the movement of people. And I think that is essential. This is key because the statistical definition will allow and ensure that the research teams are measuring the same crime. We want to make sure that by remaining faithful to Palermo, that we are able to move forward with a common statistical definition. This represents the first time that we have been able to do this. Another distinctive of the forum is that in addition to a common statistical definition, that there will be a meta-analysis. And a meta-analysis will compare the methodologies one to another, and we'll make sure that we can actually build a toolbox of different prevalence estimates that we can use for years to come. In addition, we're going to move beyond vulnerability. For far too long, the trafficking movement has measured the vulnerability to trafficking and not trafficking itself. With the Prevalence Forum, all the studies will focus on measuring the incidence of human trafficking offenses rather than the mere vulnerabilities to trafficking. Now, we all know that factors like poverty, immigration status, educational level, discrimination, prior trauma, addiction, family and community bonds, all lead one vulnerable to criminals. Yet we also know that the vulnerabilities themselves are not the root cause of trafficking. The root cause of trafficking are the traffickers. Trafficking is always caused by the women and the men who elect to exploit people in forced labor or commercial sex. Traffickers tell us that they often target vulnerable people because they are easier to control. By measuring the crime and not just the vulnerabilities, the forum brings a new level of rigor to the field. Finally, the sixth distinction is publication. The final key to this forum is that each of the grantees are required to publish their results in academic journals. Through a unified publishing strategy, we will ensure that all the results, including null, are made public. Furthermore, we hope academic papers will provoke interest and debate within the academic community and encourage researchers from other fields to consider working on human trafficking, as well as publications ensuring that the studies generated by the forum will serve as a toolbox for program design and a starting point for future research. Let's also be honest about what this forum is not intended to do. Our efforts are ambitious, but the forum's not intended to answer all questions. The studies will not produce exact numbers of cases. The forum's findings should not be generalized into a global estimate or any national estimate. The results should not be used to suggest the prevalence across regions or industries that have not been studied. While we're very excited about the forum and its contributions to our understanding of how to measure prevalence, we also know that prevalence is not the only measure that's valuable. Prevalence is one of many possible rulers one could use to measure the impact, and it's not always the best ruler. There are many important and essential interventions to combat trafficking, deserving of our collective attention, even though they may not have a significant impact on prevalence. Let me give you an example. Providing effective trauma-informed care to survivors who are no longer being trafficked may have very little impact on the total number of current trafficking victims, because traffickers may have moved on and exploited other new victims. But we must be determined to develop additional non-prevalence-focused innovations to effectively measure the impact of counseling, of shelters, and of other protection services. So although the prevalence ruler isn't the only needed metric, I think developing it is a significant contribution to the field. The bottom line is that as we launch the Prevalence Forum, we are committing to move beyond merely measuring activities and beginning to focus on measuring impact. A focused estimate with good data will strengthen our argument to right-size the world's approach to this crime. And this is the time to engage. We are not powerless to do something about human trafficking. And I believe that the research can actually generate hope. I think people of goodwill want to draw near to others in pain if they think they can do something about it. Showing progress towards our big goal of freedom can generate the tangible hope that inspires engagement over the long haul. This is hard work, and there are no easy fixes. But the world is not in desperate need of people to explain why things are hard. The world's in desperate need of people to do the hard things. But securing freedom for all is a hard thing worth doing, and it is time to prioritize freedom. If we value freedom, we must measure progress. And with the innovative new research of the Prevalence Forum launching today, we can meet that huge challenge before us, and we can measure impact. And I'm glad we're in this together. Thank you for joining.
Thank you, Mr. Ambassador. It's my pleasure to now introduce you to Mr. William Wolf, Principal Deputy Director for the Department of Justice's Office for Victims of Crime. Director Wolf, over to you.
Well, thank you, Susan, and certainly it is a privilege today to join all of you. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are around the world. But it is a privilege to join Ambassador Richmond, Assistant Secretary Johnston, and all our wonderful researchers today. I want to say how much I appreciate the work you're all doing to widen our field of knowledge about human trafficking. I started or was introduced to human trafficking a little over a decade ago working as a police officer. And I can tell you that I had no idea the true prevalence or existence of human trafficking here in the United States until I worked that first case. And it really opened my eyes to understand the problem as a whole. And I'm thankful to all of you for opening the rest of our eyes. I'm also so pleased that the Department of Justice can be one of the major partners in this effort to improve research around the issue of prevalence. We know that this is a long-standing issue, and we're glad to be a part of a great team of federal agencies and national experts who are working to tackle the problem. Research is one of the primary functions of the Office of Justice Programs, and our National Institute of Justice is the federal lead for public safety research, and human trafficking remains one of our top priorities. We've invested substantial resources in expanding our base of evidence, and we'll be making even more research awards this year. I hasten to add that this is part of an even larger overall investment in fighting human trafficking. Last year, we awarded more than $100 million to help state and local agencies investigate trafficking cases and serve trafficking victims. Grants from our Office for Victims of Crime, Bureau of Justice Assistance, and Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention are funding trafficking task forces, training law enforcement, and serving thousands of survivors every year, including some of the youngest victims. And I'm proud that this year, in response to requests from the field, we're supporting a new program to provide housing for trafficking victims, investing more than $30 million to ensure survivors of trafficking have safe and stable housing. We know there's tremendous interest from Congress, from those of us in the federal government, and from practitioners like you all in the field to understand the prevalence of human trafficking in the United States, as well as around the world. We all know that measuring human trafficking is very challenging. Research has found that no single method will accurately estimate both sex and labor trafficking, or child and adult victims, or to add even another layer across various sectors. We know that at this stage in the game, we're not in a position to provide overall estimates, so we understand that it's important to fund targeted studies. This will help ensure that we're understanding, identifying, and measuring the problem correctly. I wanted to share a bit about what we're doing to lay the groundwork for addressing this challenge. We're funding a number of studies to identify methodologies, sampling strategies, and screening tools to measure both sex and labor trafficking in the United States, and certainly using those methodologies to support the efforts through the State Department around the world. Here's a sampling of some of the work NIJ is doing. We've developed sampling strategies to better identify labor and sex trafficking victims in New York City. We've assessed the ability of the child welfare system in Florida to identify domestic minor sex trafficking. We created a prevalence estimate for labor trafficking in North Carolina and for migrant workers in San Diego County, California. We developed identification methods for assessing prevalence in trafficking among homeless and runaway youth in the Atlanta metro area. We're testing estimation methodology for hidden populations within established data systems. Our hope here is to get better estimates of prevalence in local jurisdictions. And we're testing multiple systems estimation, or MSE. As many of you know, MSE is a statistical technique used in the international sphere to produce prevalence estimates. We used MSE to estimate trafficking prevalence in 3 U.S. jurisdictions using uniform crime reporting and victim service data. We're also looking at leveraging data collection tools through the use of technology as a way to increase our ability to collect that data to make sure that those researchers in the field are getting the best information possible to conduct their studies. This past January, President Trump remarked, "The inherent dignity, freedom, and autonomy of every person must be respected and protected. Despite the progress we have made and the momentum we have built towards ending human trafficking, there is still more to be done." The work that you all are doing is vital to safeguarding all people from the threat of human trafficking. On behalf of the Department of Justice, the Office of Justice Programs, and my boss, Principal Deputy Director Katie Sullivan, thank you for your continued commitment. We stand ready to assist and look forward to hearing about all the amazing ongoing work today.
Thank you, Director Wolf. Now we will hear from Lynn Johnson, Assistant Secretary for the Administration of Children and Families at the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. Madam Assistant Secretary, over to you.
Thank you. It is an honor to speak with you all today. It is exciting to see the changes that have been happening throughout the last 25 years in addressing human trafficking. So first, let me thank Ambassador Richmond and Principal Deputy Director Wolf for their commitment to advancing the knowledge base and identifying effective methodologies to estimate the prevalence of human trafficking domestically and abroad. Since 2001, HHS has joined our federal partners to fund a range of topics to better understand human trafficking, victimization, and effective responses, including service needs and barriers for victims, best practice for victims assistance and survivor engagement, and strategies to address demand and risk factors for human trafficking to inform primary prevention efforts. We are proud to continue these interagency collaborations in response to President Trump's executive order on combating human trafficking and online child exploitation in the United States, calling on our 3 departments to conduct research assessing the methodologies to estimate the prevalence of human trafficking within specific sectors or regions. Over the last 15 years, HHS funded research on human trafficking, contributing to at least 34 publications in peer-reviewed journals.
I think we may have lost the Assistant Secretary.
Yes, I confirm that I can't hear or see her anymore. This is Sheldon.
Okay, until we get her back, could we move on, Susan?
It looks like we've lost connectivity with the Assistant Secretary, so we're going to move on, and when she joins us again, hopefully we can slot her in later. Next up is Dr. David Okeke, the Director for the African Programming and Research Initiative to End Slavery at the University of Georgia. Dr. Okeke, over to you.
Thank you so much, Susan, and hopefully we'll have the Secretary back with us as soon as possible. So the Honorable John Richmond, Ambassador at Large, Office to Monitor and Combat Trafficking in Persons at the U.S. Department of State. Mr. William Wolf, Human Trafficking Programs Director, Office of Justice Programs at the U.S. Department of Justice. The Honorable Lynn Johnson, Assistant Secretary, Administration of Children and Families at the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. Prevalence Forum partners, ladies and gentlemen across the world, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. And this is the new reality nowadays. It's good morning, good afternoon, good evening. And may I add my voice and to thank you all for taking time in joining us in this virtual forum on the implementation of the best available research methods in human trafficking prevalence measurement. So my talk is entitled Human Trafficking Prevalence Estimation, the Next Frontier. And what I will do here is to provide a glimpse of what this forum is all about. Next. So how did we get to this day? So I don't want to say so much because already the ambassador has spoken about the history of how we came in here. But how exactly did we get to this day? There have been about 4 forums over the past 3 years where the issue of human trafficking prevalence measurement has been the major theme. So the Prevalence Reduction Innovation Forum simply implements recommendations from these previous proceedings. It is a bold move. We know that this is the next big step. So we have 2 main aims, and the first aim is to identify and build the capacity of human trafficking research teams in the design, testing, and dissemination of human trafficking prevalence data. And secondly, we want to document the robustness of various methodological approaches in human trafficking prevalence research. So who are our partners? And we are many, and some of them have already been mentioned. We have many partners. So first of all, we are very grateful to the US Department of State for committing considerable resources, that is $5 million to this project. This is a significant amount, and really we want to invest it well. I'm also grateful to the team that I work with and the team that I direct. That is APRIES, the African Programming and Research Initiative to End Slavery. We are the grantee for this particular grant. And APRIES members actually have about 10 projects, have projects in about 10 countries across the world, including 3 that are funded by the PEMS project that Ambassador Richmond spoke about. So the hard-to-reach population research methods is a very important partner to us. And this group comprises Dr. Lisa Johnston, Dr. Okeke McLaughlin, and Dr. Ian Fellows. And these people have been very, very important in helping us to shape and design this project. And of course, our very, very important grantees. We have 6 grantees. These are our frontline people. They'll be working closely with local collaborators in 6 countries. And Brazil has 2 projects. So that brings to 7 the total number of projects in the Prevalence Forum. And of course, we also want to thank our other consultant, Dr. McCartan Humphreys from Columbia University, who will be very helpful in helping us produce the very first and very, very important meta-analysis for this project. Next. So what is this forum? What is the Prevalence Reduction Innovation Forum? What exactly is this forum? So this forum, of course, is funded by the PEMS office. And we know what PEMS does, so I don't want to repeat that. But the forum is a set of high impact activities whose culmination is the dissemination of seminal work in the science of prevalence estimation in the field of human trafficking. Next. So as far as we know, according to the ambassador, research of this scope and style with this level of both coordination and specificity has never before been completed in the international human trafficking prevalence field. So this is a very, very pivotal quote. Thank you so much, Mr. Ambassador. So what is human trafficking? And of course, there are many definitions out there about human trafficking. Some of them are long and winding. But human trafficking basically occurs when a trafficker compels someone to provide labor or services and to engage in commercial sex or prostitution through the use of force, fraud, coercion, or abduction, deception, or the abuse of power or a position of vulnerability. So this coercion initially can be subtle or overt, and it can also be physical or psychological. However, when the person is a child, the proof of force, fraud, coercion are not necessary in the definition of human trafficking. So people can be trafficked both in the environment, right at home, or also sometimes there is movement. So sometimes there is movement, other times there is no movement. However, human trafficking should also be distinguished from human smuggling. And of course, smuggling occurs when you secure or aid the illegal entry of a person into a state in which they are not a national or permanent resident for financial or other material benefit. And people can willfully pay to be smuggled. Next. So the UN has three main elements of human trafficking, and the first of them, the first protocol, the first element is the means under which this happens, and is the acts under which this happens, and this includes recruitment, transportation, transfer, or harboring of people. And then the second element is the means, that is how it happens, and this can include force, coercion, abduction, fraud, deception, and the abuse of power or position of vulnerability. And of course, the third element is the purpose. And the purpose is always exploitation. The purpose of trafficking is always exploitation. So this protocol is found under the protocol to prevent, suppress, and punish trafficking in persons, especially women and children. And it is also commonly known as the Palermo Protocol of 2000. It was ratified by the UN General Assembly on November 15th, 2000. And this protocol has guided human trafficking work across the world for the last 2 decades. So we see human trafficking on TV, on radio, we hear about it, but human trafficking has long-term effects on nearly everybody. Individuals, families, and communities, and even nations bear the brunt of trafficking. Socially, human trafficking affects both those that are left and those that are trafficked, where there is movement. Psychological effects include PTSD, difficulty in relationships, depression, memory loss, anxiety, fear, guilt, shame, and other severe forms of mental trauma. Economic effects include lost earnings and compromised futures for victims. And the health effects, of course, include HIV, AIDS, and other STDs, and of course, spreading these diseases in wider societies. And also victims of trafficking are physically harmed, thus compromising their long-term health. So if human trafficking is that bad and has long-term impacts, then how many people are trafficked? And that is why we're here. The reason why we're here is because we do not know how many people are trafficked. The thing is, nobody really knows. So the question of the magnitude of the trafficking problem is hotly debated, as there is no stand-alone method that is available to provide estimates. Achieving a methodologically sound estimation method requires significant intellectual and financial resources and a long-term perspective that is informed by local conditions, because trafficking victims are usually difficult to locate. So there is a lot of national level aggregate data. A number of them are mere extrapolations. So this forum focuses on hotspot data. It is an efficient and effective way to reduce prevalence through programming and policy work. So this is the difference in this forum. So next slide. Next slide, please. So what is a hard to reach population? So human trafficking populations are hard to reach because trafficking is a crime and victims are not always willing to come forward. Hard to reach populations are difficult to systematically study with the application of standard probability methods in survey sampling, including in recruitment, participation, and retention. Members of this population are rare or stigmatized in the larger population, so that it's prohibitively expensive to contact them through traditional recruitment methods. Next slide. So The reason why we're here, researchers always exist to fill gaps in research. And so existing methodologies, all of us agree as stakeholders here. I have spoken to nearly so many researchers here. I know all the key researchers in this field. All of us agree that we are not satisfied with the ability of current sampling and statistical methods to provide reliable prevalence estimates of human trafficking. So we are building on past efforts, and this forum is a pioneer in this next frontier of human trafficking prevalence estimation. So findings from this forum will inform human trafficking research in the US and internationally, as well as research with other hard-to-reach populations. Next slide, please. So what is our rationale? Our rationale is very, very simple. So to start from the end, we want to save money. So we want to know what is right, so we're efficient and effective in what we do. So we agree that all current methods of human trafficking prevalence estimation are fraught with unmeasurable errors. So as the ambassador said, we want to test at least 2 methods in a validation process. And the lessons that we learn here can be applied to the study of other hidden populations. So we want to answer a few questions. We can't answer all the questions as the ambassador said, but we want to answer a few questions. And one of the questions we want to answer is, what methods work best under what conditions? And why do some methods produce more reliable estimates than others in the said circumstances? And we believe that this will save resources moving forward. Next slide, please. So in that case, our goal is therefore to, the goal of the forum is to build a global community of researcher learners in the science of human trafficking prevalence estimation. And our vision for human trafficking research, our vision for human trafficking is that research will begin to inform programs and policies the way currently programs and policies are informing research. Next slide, please. So what is prevalence? We're all speaking about prevalence, and so what is a prevalence? So in short, prevalence is the proportion of people involved in a specific activity or who experience a specific condition within a specified time frame and expressed per 1,000 in the reference group. So in human trafficking, for example, the prevalence rate is the percent of the population in the specified geographic area, sector, and or industry who are trafficked. Next slide, please. So methods, some of them have been discussed, and some of the, like Mr. Wolf described some of the methods that they are using at the Department of Justice. So some of the methods that we have currently are respondent-driven sampling, capture methods, time spacing location sampling, link tracing methods, network-based sampling techniques, including NSAM, and the multiple systems estimation, which Mr. Wolf just described. I can see some windows appearing here for a survey, but I can't do surveys myself, so I just clicked that out. And these methods are borrowed actually from other fields. For example, capture methods is borrowed from the field of estimating the prevalence of wild animals. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. So what is our strategy? Our strategy is basically to have a set of activities that will lead into a set of high impact products. So we had a pre-harmonization conference where we met the teams, including our consultants, to try to look at the methods. And this process will continue over the next 2 months to try to harmonize those methods, to try to critique those methods, to try to make sure that those methods are robust moving forward. So today we have the Innovation Forum 1. And of course, after this, fieldwork will begin. Of course, our job as APRIES will be to provide monitoring, evaluation, learning, technical support, and capacity building. And in about 18 months to 2 years, we hope to have the next forum. This is where we'll have all the products, and we hope that we'll disseminate these findings in a special issue, in a high impact channel. We hope to have an edited book. We hope to have a technical report, and also a meta-analysis of the results. Next slide, please. So congratulations to our grants. This was a very, very competitive process, and we believe that we have the best researchers in the whole world. We believe we have the best researchers in the whole world. We believe we have the best consultants in the whole world. We also believe we have the best management team in the whole world in this area. So first off is Yuki Lau from the Freedom Fund and Dr. Celia Schwarzwald from the Oswaldo Cruz Foundation, and they'll be working in Brazil. And we have Dr. Grant Miller from Stanford University, Dr. Cortland Robinson from Johns Hopkins University, Dr. Meredith Dunk from John Jay College of Criminal Justice, Dr. Clifford Zenes and Karim Kisia from NOC at the University of Chicago, and last but not least, Dr. Sheldon Zhang from the University of Massachusetts, Lowell. Again, congratulations. And you can see from the slides that they're working in different areas in those countries. Next slide, please. So we have some core principles. We believe that this forum is innovative, and apart from having like meta-analysis, apart from having stronger methods than what we've seen in the past, trying to validate more than two or more methods, we also have core principles, which are very, very important. And in this world today, we know what is happening in the world. A little bit of cheer will do well. So cheers, everybody. So our methods are based on trying to cheer everybody. So the say in cheers is a collaborative science. We are working with local research teams and ensuring that research is not extractive. We don't want to get into a country, complete research and leave and never be seen again. This research is supposed to help inform programs and policies. So we hope to do programming and policies in these places that will do research. So the H stands for honest science. We want to be open in our communication on the successes and challenges as in reporting results. We know, because we've been involved in this field for a long time, that some of the studies have issues, and sometimes you read a paper and you can see there are issues, but you want to be as honest as possible in this forum. The first E stands for ethical science. We are going to abide by all human rights requirements and of course, local country laws. The second E is empathetic science, which means that ultimately we want to measurably reduce the prevalence of human trafficking. This is applied research. And the R stands for responsible science. We are going to complete a comprehensive review of factors that influence the integrity of the research process in a country, including looking at COVID-19 related factors. And finally, S stands for sound science. We are going to use the best available methodological and analytical techniques. And that is why we have invested in the best researchers in the whole world and the best consultants in the whole world in this process. Next, please. So what are some of the future frontiers? So the future frontiers are not just strong methods, strong research. Our research has to inform programs and policies. So we want to improve prevalence estimation in hotspots, and we want to go beyond national, aggregate, or extrapolated data. That we believe is very innovative. Number two, we want evidence-informed programs that could use randomized controlled trials. And we also want programs to include survivor voice and also be trauma-informed. Our programs have to be contextualized in those countries. Finally, we believe that policies should be guided by research and by data. It is good that people are concerned. It is good that people have a heart for victims of trafficking, but we are also appealing to the mind in this endeavor. Next, please. So as I said, last but not least, Dr. Sheldon Zhang, and I've known some of us here know Dr. Sheldon Zhang. He's a very prominent researcher in the area, and Sheldon Zhang had this quote, which I'm going to read slowly. Requiring research teams to empirically test and compare at least 2 rigorous methods in its primary data collection in order to demonstrate the relative merits of the estimates is unprecedented in the current research community on modern slavery. Given that the varied numbers produced through different prevalence estimation methods have remained a major source of contention, as well as confusion in the global discourse on modern slavery, the Prevalence Forum moves the research a step further and will produce some of the most influential works on the best strategies to estimate the prevalence of modern slavery that will better inform programming and policy work. Thanks, Dr. Sheldon, for that quote. I'm going to frame it, actually. So in this day and age, it is difficult to do anything without thinking about COVID-19. So no one can ignore what is happening in the world right now, and it is difficult to predict what happens in the months or even years to come. No one can tell the shape of the new normal that we'll find ourselves in. Both the chief office and APRIES will work with the individual teams to ensure the safety of grantees, local partners, and research participants in adhering to US, in-country, and global directions on travel and social contacting in the context of COVID-19 or other unforeseen challenges. We will abide by our principles, the acknowledgement that collecting data in a COVID-19 or post-COVID-19 environment affects our countries, hotspots, research partners, and how we interact with people in the field. We will use our responsible science value in collecting human trafficking data in a COVID-19 or post-COVID-19 environment. Next slide, please. So this will not have been possible without the help of so many people. First of all, of course, we thank Susan Snyder for chairing this conference. But we've had a very, very strong organizing committee, like myself, and our very able Dr. Lydia Letralis, the project coordinator, every person who is in this knows Lydia by now. And in fact, yesterday, Lydia was up the whole day trying to make sure that the system is working. So thank you so much, Lydia. Dr. Jody Clay Warner, Dr. Claire Bolton, and Elisa Schroeder, all University of Georgia and APRIES, and also Dr. Angelica Gotho from Ohio State University and also APRIES. And of course, we've had A.B. Long and Joe Schul. These TAPE officers have been so helpful and very encouraging in this process. Thank you so much, A.B., and thank you, Josh. We also want to thank our reviewers. Some are here and some are not here. People who reviewed the applications, people who provided comments and suggestions. Thank you so much. Without you, this would not have been possible. We thank our consultants who are here, and you'll be hearing from them soon. We also want to thank Ambassador Richmond for committing so much resources to this process. Thank you so much, Ambassador Richmond. Next slide, please. So I want to end with an African proverb. And the proverb says that no matter how full the river is, it still wants to grow. In other words, a lot has been done on human trafficking work, whether it is research, policy, and programming, but a lot still needs to be done, and a lot will be done. And this forum is part of that effort to do a lot that needs to be done. Well, thank you so much, and over to you, Susan.
Thank you. Hi, everybody again. We have back our Assistant Secretary for the Administration of Children and Families at the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. So we're going to go back to her. I understand she's on the telephone, so I don't think you'll see her. Perhaps we can put up a slide or something, and then, oh, we do see her. Here she is. Over to you, Madam Assistant Secretary.
Assistant Secretary Johnson, we cannot hear you. You are not muted, but we cannot hear you.
Let me try using the phone
yes,
first.
That's perfect.
Okay, perfect. And again, what I was saying was I apologize for that. Whatever happened, I still don't know, but I'm very excited and proud of myself that I figured out how to get back on. So let me just continue. And again, thank you to everybody that is here on this call. The anti-trafficking research findings are available on ACF's website as well as on PubMed Central, a digital archive of federally funded biomedical and public health research. I hope that people will go to the website and look at what we've put up there. In regards to HHS efforts to strengthen prevalence research, we recognize the importance of strengthening anti-trafficking data to contribute to rigorous prevalence studies. In the last few years, the Administration for Children and Families, the Office on Trafficking in Persons, has worked with federal, state, and local partners. We have established uniform data elements across anti-trafficking victim assistance programs by adapting data standards proposed by National Technical Working Group experts. We have supported integration of human trafficking data elements into existing health and human service databases, including the Runaway and Homeless Youth Program, the National Child Abuse and Neglect Data System, Adoption and Foster Care Analysis Reporting System, and the International Classification of Diseases Program. We have modernized case management systems through the development of Shepherd, an online platform that provides a streamlined way for individuals to request assistance for victims of human trafficking. We facilitate secure transmission of information for case processing and service referrals, and we strengthen data privacy, security, and confidentiality protection related to the issuance of Health and Human Service certification, interim assistance, and eligibility letters. Very, very important. And we identified possibilities for interoperability, including the development of standards for human trafficking data elements in the human services domain of the National Information Exchange Model. So moving beyond data collection, the Administration for Children and Families also supported our partners at the Health and Human Services Office of Women's Health last year in a collaboration with National Academies of Sciences to host a 2-day workshop on estimating the prevalence of human trafficking in the United States. This event highlighted innovative approaches and sampling methods that can be used to estimate human trafficking prevalence within the industries and locations across the U.S. Links to the workshop recordings and reports are published by the National Academies of Science, and that is available on OTEP's website. So we hope that this information will be helpful to each and every one of you who is participating in today's forum. The ACF Office on Planning, Research, and Evaluation recently awarded a contract to RTI to field test prevalence methodologies in the United States. This project will build on a systemic review of prevalence methods on human trafficking in the U.S. and select methods for field testing within industries impacted by human trafficking. For example, childcare, agriculture, construction, or illicit activities, aligning with the Department of State's statistical definition indicators, and processes wherever possible. Findings will be captured in a final report and distributed widely to the research community. HHS welcomes this opportunity to complement the Department of State's international prevalence effort and looks forward to working with the Department of Justice in coordinating on all of our domestic activities. We are excited to learn from each of you, everyone who is participating today, and all of the shared expertise as we work together to make a collective impact that we will be felt throughout the anti-trafficking research community. I know that we can do this if we all work together to end and eradicate this seriousness of human trafficking worldwide. So thank you for making a difference throughout the entire world. Thank you so much. Back to you.
Thanks so much, Madam Assistant Secretary. We're so grateful that you were able to get back on and share that great information with us. Now we're going to hear from Dr. Lisa Johnson, Dr. Katie McLaughlin, and Dr. Ian Fellows from the Hard to Reach Population Methods Research Group, a collaborative interdisciplinary group of researchers from different universities. Over to you all.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lisa Johnston, and I'm one of the 3 consultants on this project in order to provide assistance for the design methodologies and the analysis. I myself, along with Dr. Fellows and Dr. McLaughlin, are part of the Hard to Reach Populations Methods Research Group, or more easily HPMRG. And we're an interdisciplinary group. We just collaborate on trying to improve the methodology in hard to reach populations and include the way we analyze data. I myself am an epidemiologist. I'm an independent consultant. I provide technical advice. I advise countries on how to sample hard to reach populations and how to analyze and interpret data from those hard to reach populations. Most of my work is international in Africa and Asia. And I also am been working with Dr. Fellows and Dr. McLaughlin, and we've done training internationally on how to analyze RDS data. I also work with time location sampling, and I have I've been involved in more than 300 RDS or TLS surveys around the world. So I have a lot of experience in applying the methodology. Thank you.
All right. Hi, everyone. Thanks, Lisa. So hi, my name is Katie McLaughlin, and I'm a member of HPMRG. And so my role on this project, along with Dr. Johnston and Dr. Fellows, will be to serve as a consultant and provide technical support to the grantees as they develop and implement their research plans. So a little bit of background about me. I'm currently an assistant professor in the Department of Statistics at Oregon State University. And I also have an adjunct appointment in the College of Public Health and Human Sciences here at OSU. My research focuses on sampling and analysis methodologies related to networked and hidden populations, particularly when data are collected using respondent-driven sampling. So I saw from the poll earlier that many of you are familiar with RDS, which is great. I've generally applied these these methods to hidden populations at high risk for HIV and AIDS, although they're certainly more broadly applicable, including to populations involved in human trafficking. Recently, I've focused on developing and assessing population size estimation strategies that can be used with one or several respondent-driven samples, including diagnostic and visualization tools to help practitioners use these methods. So one thing that drew me to the field of statistics was the opportunity to do interdisciplinary work and to develop new approaches to tackle pressing real-world problems. So I'm therefore very excited to be a part of this collaboration, which brings together experts from many different fields of research. I look forward to learning more about the contexts each research grantee is working in and helping to advance the important research being done to estimate the prevalence of human trafficking. All right, over to Ian.
Thank you very much. My name is Ian Fellows. I'm the president of Fellows Statistics. We do work mostly with the United States Center for Disease Control. I'm a statistician working at the intersection of statistics and computer science. I do a lot of work in methodologies in hidden populations and am a member of the Hidden Population Methods Research Group. I've done work in RDS prevalence estimation, population size estimation around networked populations in RDS, and also novel data collections method. I'm also very interested in novel data collection methods that that impose rigor. From a software, I'm really also very interested in making sure that the methodologies that statisticians develop in hidden populations makes it out into the broader research community. I've developed statistical packages that have been downloaded millions of times and used. Also the author of RDS Analyst, which is a popular software package for performing analysis in respondent-driven sampling. I'm also the lead developer on epiapps.com, where we provide web interfaces for different cutting-edge methodologies for multiple source capture, recapture, HIV incidence estimation, and also the design and analysis of time location sampling data. I'm very excited to be here on this project. Hidden populations don't come about by accident. Hidden populations are hidden precisely because they are stigmatized, coerced, and vulnerable. Measurement of these populations, therefore, are much more important from a humanitarian standpoint than measurements of the general population. But measurements are also much harder, much harder. As methodologists, we have to flexibly leverage creative data collection techniques and balance the feasibility of implementing these techniques with statistical rigor. This is why this forum is so needed and really so innovative. The methodologies, implementing methodologies in the same population at the same time is the gold standard for people like me who are statisticians. And there couldn't be a more capable set of grant recipients. I really look forward to seeing how they move the science forward with methods that really will set the standard for conversations around prevalence estimation in human trafficked populations. Thank you.